So we're here today to talk about arguably the most debated character in all of One Piece, and of course that's Mihawk. Specifically, I wanted to address Morj's latest video on him and some of the points that he made concerning Mihawk's title. Questions like whether or not it counts towards every swordsman in the series, does it apply to opponents that would potentially fight Zoro after Mihawk has already been defeated, even if certain characters are considered from an entirely different realm altogether, you know, not of this world. So technically Mihawk's title shouldn't apply, right? Let's get right into it. First things first, we have to figure out what a swordsman is and who counts as one. The definition of a swordsman is a man who fights with a sword, typically with a level of skill specified. Sounds simple enough, right? I personally think so, but as we all know, things like this are never that simple within the One Piece community itself. Through the years, it's often been suggested that there's certain parameters that a character must meet to qualify as a swordsman. At one point, if a character depended too much on haki, they would be considered a haki man instead of a swordsman, or a haki fighter. And this would always apply to Shanks in most cases because of all the crazy things he can do without his sword. What if they have a devil fruit? What if they're able to use strength that isn't inherently coming out of their sword? The truth is, you can have all those things. You can have this incredibly monstrous haki as well as an insanely powerful devil fruit, but the bottom line is, if you have your sword in hand, or rather if you need your sword to be in your hand, actively fighting while you are at your best, at your most proficient combatively, you are unquestionably a swordsman. So haki and devil fruits are not at all the difference maker in this discussion, unless it's a situation where a certain combatant has a stronger punch with haki than they do a stronger sword slash. If they can do things way better with their hands than they can with their sword, then that just doesn't apply to them. And with the haki fighters we've seen, especially Shanks, you know, he has gained fame through fighting Mihawk, through having these sword duels with Mihawk. So you would think something as important as that towards his claim to the top has to be him at his best, right? You have people like Kaku with his own devil fruit, who uses it to enhance his sword ability, his physical strength. The power behind his slashes is due to his Zoan devil fruit helping him fight at a higher level. So devil fruits and haki, although they're not considered swordsmanship on their own, they can be used to enhance someone's swordsmanship. There's no rules against this. This is how sword fights in One Piece are conducted. You have to prove that you're stronger than somebody's culmination of abilities. If someone has superior haki, you just have to gain superior haki than them. If they have a devil fruit, you have to overcome that devil fruit through your own abilities. You have to become faster, you know, stronger, even gain better observation haki. Do anything you can to surpass them, because like Eiichiro said, the world is convenient in that way. Haki transcends all, and haki allows you to overcome all these hurdles no matter what the other opponents or the other swordsmen may have to their advantage. There's no shortcuts or sympathy with this. Either you're the best or you're not. Simple as that. And so now that we have that side settled, let's move on to the next important part of the discussion, and that's the fact that Mihawk's title itself is being drawn into question. Is he really the strongest swordsman, or is there a true strongest swordsman out there that surpasses him in everything? The biggest point that Morj brought up is the fact that we've seen a couple of instances in which titles were not necessarily legitimate in One Piece, and the idea with that is that it set a precedent that Mihawk's title itself might not be legitimate as well. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think there's a precedence there. I think everything has its own individual circumstances. Everything should be judged on an individual basis, or every title should rather. Number one, there's the fact that Whitebeard was the strongest man at one point. His title was legitimate, but with him, the thing was old age came into play, poor health came into play, and all the injuries he sustained in Marineford also came into play. This doesn't necessarily mean that his title was illegitimate, but rather it was outdated, but there was nothing there to tell us or the people of the One Piece world before we saw how bad his health was. For Whitebeard himself, it was a reputation thing that carried over into his old age and past his prime. Those exact circumstances themselves do not apply to Kaido and Mihawk, as they are in their prime, fully healthy, with no issues like that holding them back. So it's not really a good idea to operate under the notion that all titles in One Piece are there to be drawn into question. Some of them serve a purpose, some of them tell us a complete story, and there's a lot of support for this when it comes to Mihawk's title specifically, because his title is recognized by the One Piece world, even the world government, and Zoro himself constantly props up Mihawk and puts him on his pedestal, surpassing any and all swordsmen in the One Piece world. But to take things even a step further than that, Mihawk's viewer card confirms that he is the strongest swordsman not only in name but in actuality, and that there is no swordsman secretly stronger than him. Even with all of that, there's a new angle that's been brought up in this debate, and that involves the celestial dragons. The idea is, what if Mihawk is actually the world's strongest swordsman, and that there are no secret swordsmen in the One Piece world that are secretly stronger than him? And the idea with the celestial dragons, specifically one of the 5 elders, Zoro, and one of the gods knights, Garling Figureland, the idea with them is they're exempt from Mihawk's title because they're not considered of this world. They're considered to be a part of heaven, the realm of the gods. I would see merit in this idea if the celestial dragons were living on the moon or something like that, but that's not the case at all. They're still of this world. They might be living on a land for people of higher status than the common born folks. That doesn't take them out of the fold of people living on this planet. They're still the inward face of the world government, just like the admirals in the Navy are the outward face. In any case, I still think that Zoro will fight someone in the world government that's a swordsman, more than likely Zoro, but I don't think this means that he's going to be stronger than Mihawk. But now let's talk about Mihawk's purpose in the story, because oftentimes it's said that Mihawk's sole purpose in the story is to be an end goal or something to give Zoro purpose. So the sole purpose of his character is to just be defeated. First of all, if this was the case, wouldn't that mean he would have to embody what it means to be a strongest swordsman through and through? Why would this be his sole purpose just for it to not be true in the end anyway? It just doesn't make any sense. But the way I view Mihawk, I think there's several things that go into his character. Number one, he serves a role of showing us what it means to be individually strong without relying on others. We see this with how he was observing Luffy, and it was a great contrast between himself and Luffy. Luffy possesses the greatest power on the seas and Mihawk doesn't, and that's because Luffy's power extends beyond himself. Mihawk's power is strictly combat. Mihawk's character is important for us to understand swordsmanship as a whole, not just because of Zoro, but because of all the other fighters in the One Piece world that are sword fighters. There's so much we have to learn, so much sword lore that has to be explored that can only come through Mihawk, because he has accomplishments that not even the Pirate King himself was able to achieve. As strong as Roger was, he was not able to forge a black blade, and I know oftentimes the idea is that the people who do not forge black blades simply did not want to, but I don't see why that makes any sense, because why wouldn't you want to maximize your combat ability by any means necessary if you have the option to do so? Especially someone like Roger, who's an absolute nut for fighting. There's so much we don't know about Mihawk and how he rose to the top, who he had to overcome, and what else might have set him on his path. Why it's not so simple as it's the title that Zoro's after, not Mihawk. It's both. Zoro is trying to surpass Mihawk's legend by taking the title away from him. He's trying to overcome all the accomplishments and years of work that Mihawk himself has achieved. So if you were going to throw in another swordsman like Zoro and say he's just inherently stronger than Mihawk, there has to be plenty of build-up and plenty of stuff going into it. And I'm not sure when Zoro's going to fight Mihawk, but I don't see any issue in it being one of the last fights or the final fight of the series. I don't think that changes the dynamics in any way. I don't think that makes Zoro the main character or anything like that. The scale of this fight is going to be so grand that they're going to need their own place, their own area where they're going to be splitting islands and everything. So for it to just be a side story or, you know, in the background of something else happening, it wouldn't be as impactful. This fight will be the culmination of everything that Zoro has learned in this series, specifically attack potency, observation haki, destructive capacity, conqueror's haki, armament usage, every single thing. And I don't see any other swordsman that we have seen so far presenting a greater challenge in those areas than Mihawk will. Additionally, I don't see issue in Zoro fighting other swordsmen after Mihawk. I don't think they have to be stronger just because they come after him. This could be just the case where Zoro is the strongest swordsman and he's asserting his dominance. He's showing that he is top dog. He's achieved everything that he's worked for. Now it's on others to take the title away from him to prove that they are better than him, not the other way around. As the world's strongest swordsman, Zoro is no longer the challenger. Those are my complete thoughts on Mihawk's title and his legitimacy as the world's strongest swordsman. Tell me what you think though. Do you think that Mihawk is Zoro's final fight? Do you think the celestial dragons are in any way exempt from his title? As always, comment all your thoughts down below, but also don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more videos just like this one.